What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Chigg coming at you with Basil. Today we are going to be talking about your professions in this episode of Chigg and Basil Chat. So go ahead and say hi, Basil.
What is going on, everybody?
Oh, yeah. So we are going to talk about getting them leveled, what is new, and kind of my two pennies and Basil's two pennies on why you should or shouldn't pick whatever profession it is, and maybe some suggestions on some race combinations with classes or classes and races or however you want to look at it. However, before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that sub notification icon so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. Anyway, let's get right into it. So, before we get started, what are your two pennies? What do you think is going to be the best? And then we're going to go through all of them, my man.
Leatherworking seems to be in a pretty solid spot just because of a couple of the new recipes, which we will talk about later, seem pretty cool. Um, Enchanting's always, one of the go-tos for people. And everybody knows everybody's favorite profession. They hate to level it, but they love to use it. Engineering. It's very powerful, has some unique stuff that you can do. It's not going to help other players, but just, helping yourself do better. So engineering is probably going to be a go-to for, especially all the meta people are going to definitely love to go engineering. But yeah, leatherworking, enchanting, and also there was a blacksmithing recipe that's new that looks pretty solid too.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think engineering, everybody who's meta slaves are all going to have engineering plus one. Obviously, it's going to be plus one, whatever the other thing is that's the best for them. So if they wear leather, it's going to be leatherworking. If they wear mail and plate, it's going to be blacksmithing, unless they're melee DPS, and then it's probably going to be leatherworking. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So, um, what we're gonna do first is talk about like the ease of leveling everything and kind of what classes you should use that would benefit the most or maybe not the most from them, and then we're gonna talk about the new stuff. So first things first, we're gonna talk about alchemy. Obviously, the easiest thing for alchemy is pairing it with herbalism because you're gonna be able to get your own things. It's super easy to level. Um, because you can do it just as you're walking around. When we're talking about alchemy in general, though, there's a lot of utility things. You get a ton of useful potions and elixirs, and then later in the game, you can make flasks for people. But being able to make your own healing potions, mana potions, if you're a warrior, you can make rage potions. So there's just a ton of different things. What are your two pennies on alchemy?
Alchemy is great. Just having those mana potions, especially early on, is super helpful, as we all learned in hardcore. Uh, but being able to regen some mana is always good. Your healers are definitely going to appreciate any extra mana potions they can get. But then it also has some utility stuff like your Troll's Blood and everything else that just gives you health regen. Um, and leveling it up isn't really very difficult. Basically, if you have an herbalist or you want to buy some cheap herbs off the auction house, it's fairly easy to level. It just requires a lot of herbs. Uh, but all in all, I think it's actually a really good profession. I've never really used it too much myself because I'm lazy, but I do like it.
Absolutely. So here we're looking at WoW professions. This is a step by step how to level it. Take that part as far as it's telling you need these things. So it does math in such a way where sometimes you will fail every now and then on one of the yellow um, recipes that it thinks you should be able to be successful on because it does the math of you are this likely to do it. But if you follow this, you are likely going to be right on the money. As you can see, there's not an exorbitant amount of materials needed. It's really not that difficult to level. So some of the classes that this goes really well with. First thing I want to say is if you are a rogue, having herbalism and alchemy is always good because you get the potions, you get elixirs, you get all of those things. And as a rogue, you need all of the fade leaf to be able to craft your vanishing powder and stuff. Um, So being able to get Fade Leaf on your own and not having to buy it out of the auction house is going to be a big thing once we get that far into the game. However, in the first phase, we're not going to be in that zone. So who really knows what's going to be best early on? Obviously, it's going to be engineering plus one thing, likely leatherworking. So I'm not here to tell you what's the best and what's not the best. I'm just giving you my two pennies on what classes will be able to benefit from these. Also, anything that uses mana, free mana potions are good. All of the classes that struggle to keep themselves alive. Warriors, you're going to be able to make rage potions and health potions. Those are really good. I can't think of a class that would not benefit from alchemy whatsoever. So I think that this is a safe pick one way or the other. What do you think, Basil?
I completely agree. It has something for everything. It has DPS potions and elixirs. It has tanking stuff. It has healing stuff. It's all around just a really good profession altogether. Um, and yeah, that's like I said, never really leveled in alchemy too much unless it was in retail. So kind of in the dark on this. I just know it's really good for everybody.
Yep. All right. So you heard it here, guys. Alchemy, good for anybody. All right. Let's go ahead and hit blacksmithing. One of the ones that is an absolute pain to level. So you can see the list of things you need here on WoW Professions isn't nearly as long. But when you look a little closer, instead of 20 of this and 50 of that, 150 of this, 95 of that, 140 of this, 230 of that, 520 of these. There's a lot.
Oh yeah.
730. Like, this is where you start to get up in the this is really frustrating to level part. Obviously, you pair this with mining and it's a little easier, but it's still going to be very, very, very tedious. So, my two pennies on the classes you should level this on. I would level this on a warrior or a paladin. That is it. More specifically, um, if you are going to be a warrior or a paladin that tanks early on based on the item that we're getting for Void Touched, it's going to make a difference. Obviously, we don't know what's coming later, so you don't have to feel like you're locked in just because you picked a profession in the first phase. So don't put yourself in that mentality. You can always reroll professions later. It's just time, and it can be fun leveling up other professions. So um, it is kind of useful because you can make some of your own gear and stuff, but in the long run, like, unless you are one of those two classes, I would highly recommend not going blacksmithing. What's your two pennies on that one, Basil?
As someone who has literally never leveled blacksmithing to max, but that's partially because I don't play paladin and I don't play warrior, so I don't really benefit too much from them. Um, but the new recipe looks pretty solid for tanks, so definitely if you're going to be tanking, it very well might be something you want to get. Um, but other than that, like he said, when you're not going to want blacksmithing on a priest. It just doesn't make much sense. Unless you're just trying to make bukus of gold at some point because something just sells really good, there's not going to be really much to benefit you with blacksmithing.
Yep. All right. All of that is right on the money. Let's go ahead and pop into enchanting. So, enchanting, one of the best professions, bar none. You can improve your own gear. You can improve everybody else's gear. You can take items that drop in dungeons and make them more compact in your bag, and you can sell them, and it's just really good. This one is a pain to level. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the ranges in which some of these things drop are really narrow, some of them are really wide, and it just gets really, really frustrating. So, my two pennies on this. If you are a tank or a healer, 100% pick this up because you're going to be in dungeons all the time. Secondly, if your other profession and you want your other profession to be tailoring, which is going to be if you are a caster DPS or if you are a healer, You are probably going to want to pick up tailoring because a lot of your best in slot stuff is going to be things that you can craft later on, and some of your pre-raid best stuff is going to be things you can craft. So in my particular situation, my paladin is probably going to be enchanting, mainly because I will be doing a lot of AoE grinding in general. So when I'm grinding humanoids, I'll be getting cloth that I can have either a tailor turn into something for me, or I can turn into something myself with one of my characters. Any greens I get that aren't worth selling in the auction house, obviously, will disenchant them. All of those kinds of things. So if you grind mobs, or you have one of the more needed roles in dungeons, I think enchanting is going to be a really good way to go because you're going to be able to help everybody out as well as yourself. This is a pain in the butt to level. You require items you can only get from other professions to get it leveled. But other than that, I think enchanting is always a solid way to go. And you're also in this unique position where if you know where to farm some of the recipes or some of the more rare materials, you can also use that to make more money in the long run. What do you think about this one, Basil?
So enchanting, like you said, always good. Now, one thing to keep in mind: enchanting vellums did not exist until Wrath of the Lich King. So if you want to sell your enchanting stuff, you're gonna have to get in trade chat and be like, "Want to sell enchanting?" and then tell them what you can enchant, because I don't know, I don't remember if you can link stuff, your professions in Classic or not. If you are, you can just link your what you can craft. But if you can't, you're gonna have to sit there and trade chat and tell people, "Hey, I have the recipe for this. I'm willing to enchant it. Tips appreciated." And trust me, people are gonna tip for enchanting, because especially the min maxers that want to get everything they can, they're going to pay to get what they can. So it is very good. Not only for yourself, but helping make you some gold, helping another player, yada yada. It's all around a good profession. I do want to say that if I remember correctly, to level it past a certain level, you have to go into a dungeon. Well, the entrance to a dungeon to find a very specific NPC surrounded by elites. So you're definitely going to want to be able to group up with people if you are an enchanter, um, just so you can, when you get to that point, start leveling it up. Other than that, it's just really good. It can make all kinds of good stuff for your characters.
There is pretty sure she's an apprentice enchanter, and that's inside Uldaman.
That's
Um,
what it was.
yeah, so yeah, there is an NPC that you can talk to inside a dungeon to help out with that. Um, so I don't know that she is required to hold on. I don't know that she is required to actually level it up, but I know there's some kind of special thing that she does, but I don't remember what it is. Anyway, yeah. So the TLDR, if you're gonna be in dungeons a lot or you're gonna grind a lot, go ahead and get enchanting. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Engineering, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on engineering because vanilla guys
It's
beat
just
this
good.
to death. Um, if you are trying to be meta and you want to do as much DPS as possible and have as much utility as possible and be annoying as possible in PvP, just get engineering. There are too many things that are good for this to even like I don't even want to talk about it because it's so frustratingly good. So
Now, the downfall to it is how hard it is to level.
it is a pain in the absolute booty because you have to have basically materials from um every other profession, and it's not hard to level until you get to like mithril. Even then though, like it's still just frustrating because it's just a pain in the butt to level. However, um, when you get to that point, it is what it is. You level up what you can, you get where you can, and it's just, I mean, it's good. Grenades are good for DPS, grenades are good for PvP, dynamite's good for DPS, dynamites aren't good for DP or for PvP because you can, the differentiation between that, you can use grenades while moving, you can't use dynamite while moving. So, um, that's kind of the thing. When you can stand still, dynamite's good. When you can't stand still, dynamite's not good. Grenades also have the incapacitate. So there you go. If you are a min maxer, go engineering.
Oh
TLDR.
yeah, you're gonna appreciate it.
All right. Leatherworking. If you are a melee DPS, doesn't matter if you're plate, doesn't matter if you're male, doesn't matter if you are leather. If you are a melee DPS, you can benefit from this. Any of you who have played vanilla in the past or classic in the past, you know that some of your best items for every single melee DPS are the Devil Sword set. It gives you hit, it gives you attack power, it gives you agility, it gives you so many good things. So that is one spot to be looking at. Secondarily is going to be one of the things we talk about that is one of the new items that are going to be coming in. This is super easy to level. If you pair it with skinning, you will never, ever, ever, ever struggle. As you can see here, there are giant numbers beside the leathers. However, if you skin mobs as you're questing and as you're grinding, you will never, ever, 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 ever have a problem leveling this. Ever. You will have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to leathers. Um, Obviously, if you are a class that can benefit from leather early, i.e., shaman, hunter, rogue, druid. The reason I did not say paladin or rogue is because typically when you're leveling them, you want them, or paladin or warriors, because typically when you're leveling them, you want them to be wearing mail because you're getting hit more. Um, but any of the ones that have leather until 40 or after 40 are always going to be benefiting from this as you're leveling up. Also, a lot of the best in slot items and pre-bis items are coming from leatherworking for melee DPS in general because agility gives you crit, strength gives you attack power. Obviously, you want to balance it out, but you know it's really people underestimate the power of agility for warriors and rep paladins. So you got to be taking that into consideration. And then now that we're going to be having the dual wield shaman, we're going to be coming around, and it's going to be a lot different this time around. So there's going to be a lot more leather workers, in my opinion. Um, I think that's a great thing. I also think that it's going to be incredible for those of you who like to grind, because there are going to be enough more leather workers that skinning may actually make money. I don't know if it will, but it might. We will see. But other than that, like if you're a melee DPS, this is going to be incredible. And then they're also already adding caster things to leatherworking as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. So it's kind of my two pennies on that one. What do you think, Basil?
Um, as another profession that I usually don't level, I don't know too much about it, but I do know that uh, your melee DPS is definitely going to appreciate it. They got some really good agility, uh, and it looks like with the new recipes, we're going to be getting some caster stuff with some int and spirit and everything else, which seems really good. I can definitely see more people rolling it in Season of Discovery just because of the new recipes that we're going to be getting. Just because after one looking at them, I was like, oh, okay, I might want to look into this. And then I remembered that I'm going to be playing a warlock, so I'm not really going to benefit from it, so I changed my mind.
That I mean, fair. Until you roll that resto druid. Um,
Right, right.
yeah. All right, so let's hop into tailoring, the last one. So with tailoring, if you wear cloth, you should probably have tailoring. If you grind mobs, you should probably have tailoring. If you are a healer, you should probably have tailoring. If you want to really, really, really make your enchanting pop off, you should probably go tailoring. That's about the TLDR of it. It's really good for leveling if you are a caster, period. Doesn't matter if you wear cloth, mail, or plate. If you are a caster and you are casting things, you are most likely going to benefit from wearing cloth gear. Everybody knows that Leroy Jenkins needed the devout shoulders in Upper Blackrock Spire and caused a whole mess for a pair of cloth shoulders. So,
Hey,
you know,
but at least he got chicken.
he did in fact get chicken. So, yeah. Tailoring's incredible, period. Under no
Yeah.
circumstance will it be bad, because like even if you are, I mean obviously if you're a warrior, don't go tailoring, but every other class in the game except maybe rogue can benefit from it in some manner. Also maybe warrior, so or hunter. So 6 out of 9 classes can benefit from this. Otherwise, it's super easy, super chill to level. It's one of those things. If you play the game, you can level it. Like you don't have to try. As you can see, lots of big numbers: 204 linen, 135 wool, 804 silk, 470 mage weave, 1195 rune cloth. I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you do dungeons as a consistent part of your gameplay, you will never, ever, ever, ever be starved for cloth ever in any of those ranges.
Always
Um,
remember, if you're the healer too, you can always, be like, hey, if you get extra cloth you don't need, I'm healing you.
I mean, and
So they
that's not,
can.
yeah, and that's not just healer. Like if you're in a group, you can be like, hey, do you mind if I get this? The only people that aren't going to give it to you are probably going to be warriors, hunters, and rogues, and
Because
that's
first aid.
because first aid is just too important for those 3 classes. Paladins have an argument for that, but I can say that because I am a big fan of the bubble band-aid because efficiency, and it's kind of funny in PvP to bubble and band-aid in somebody's face and be like, ha ha. But it's fine. Um, but yeah, so tailoring is great. We are going to go over the gathering professions really quickly. We're not going to talk about them. I'm just going to tell you just like the TLDR real quick. So mining, um, good moneymaker, super easy, super chill. Turn off your brain and mind. It's going to help you level blacksmithing. It's going to help you level engineering. Herbalism, another one. Turn off your brain and herb. Um, it's going to be good for alchemy. That's all it's good for. That's about it. There's a couple of quests
So
throughout the game that you can get herbs for to help out. What were you going to ask or say?
I was going to say, do keep in mind that if you do plan on double gathering with herbalism and mining, up until about Cataclysm, you could only track one at a time. So in Season of Discovery, be prepared to, if you want to double gather, not be able to see the other ones on the mini map, and then you're just going to have to switch back and forth from time to time. So just keep that in mind.
That is correct. That being said, there are macros and add ons that make it where you can see both. Also, if you use Gatherer, the add-on Gatherer, it will show you where nodes are. So if you use Farm HUD and Gatherer together, you can see where everything is. So even if you're not tracking it, you can literally like, okay, say you're tracking one. As you're walking to your next node, you can path such that you know there is a node that spawns here and still pick it up. There are ways around that if you want to be a double gatherer. Typically, people aren't double gatherers though at this stage of the game.
Right.
But that is a good point, something that did need talked about. So I appreciate you bringing that one up. That's something that slips my mind sometimes because I'm so used to I'm really good at farming. So
Yeah, well, I'm not, and I appreciate the changes post Cataclysm when it
hey,
comes to that.
right. Obviously, guys, if you want to see some farming guides, let me know in the comments. I will do my best to um, accommodate those. Skinning. This is one of my favorite professions in the entire game. 2 reasons. One, early game. This helps you get raw money to help you get rolling because sell them to the vendor. It's not worth the auction house cut. Bang, bang, bang. Secondly, if you are a class that can AoE or a class that can multi dot, my man, um, you are going to benefit so much from this because your leveling journey is such that there are going to be level brackets where grinding mobs is going to be not only the best way to make money, it is also going to be the best way to get more XP per hour. So, if you like me enjoy sitting around and hanging out with your buddies in Discord, talking to subscribers, watching YouTube videos, whatever it is you do when you're hanging out and gaming, and you just want to turn your brain off and make some progress while you do the other things, get this profession because you can just slay and skin all day. I will be having this on almost all of my characters, bar none. More specifically, my paladin, which is going to be holy. I'm going to be AoE grinding on. We can talk about that if you'd like a guide specifically for those things. I'll be showing you a couple of those, but having skinning on my AoE grindy boy pally is going to be one of the most satisfying things I can do. That being said, that's really all I got. This one's super easy to level. You come over here and you read this. It says Durotar and Dunmaro, the Barrens, Lochmadon, and Wetlands, Thousand Needles are out the Highlands, Ungoro Crater, and Feralis. This is probably the easiest professional level in the game because all you have to do is kill beasts and then right click them.
And also remember that it doesn't have to be a beast that you killed. If somebody else is killing beasts around you for something, for a quest or something, and they don't have skinning but they've looted their mob, you can go skin their mob.
Yes,
So that's always nice.
I love when Bazel and I are questing or running around and he's ahead of me. He's like, "Hey man, you got some free money up here on the ground." It's great. It just feels good, right? Okay, so now we're going to talk about the secondary professions, fishing and cooking. Oh my. So WoW Professions has these grouped together because if you have fishing, cooking is easier to level. It just is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it because you can buy the fish recipes. You can get all this. Okay, so here's my 2 pennies. I level cooking and fishing on every single character I ever play. The reason being, you get free buffs. Not only do you get free buffs, some of the buffs are really good. Obviously, in the low levels, you're just going to get some stamina and spirit, but you do get to the point later where you start getting actual buffs from these, and it starts to get really, really, really strong. That being said, though, like, you also put yourself in a position where you can get, like right here, Nightfin Soup. This is a perfect one. It gives you 8 mana per 5. Like, are you a healer? Cool. Drink Nightfin Soup, right? Are you a tank, or are you questing, or are you on a class that doesn't have any self heals? Poached Sunscale Salmon, 6 health per 5. There you go. Not only that, food is an actual cost in Classic, so being able to make your own food is going to help you out in the long run, right? Like, it's going to make it a lot easier for you when you can just sit down and pop your food and there you go. Like, so instead of spending 5 gold on a couple of stacks of food, you just craft up the meat that you got while you're questing that day before you run out for the next day, or like after you're done questing for the day, take the meat you've got, hit craft all, walk away from the computer, come back, do your bag management, log out, you're ready for the next day, right? Like, there's a lot of different ways that this is going to come in handy. Also, fishing is going to be how we get some of the best items and some of the best recipes for this phase we've got coming up. So that's going to be something to take into consideration. There's going to be rows and rows and rows of people fishing in Stranglethorn Vale at level 25 trying not to get murdered by mobs.
The random wildlife.
Yeah. But that's all I've got for fishing and cooking. You got 2 pennies on that?
Cooking is great. I've never been one to level it very often, but when I did, I definitely appreciated it. The buffs that you can give yourself are great. And, just being able to, if you're like into the raiding scene and everything else, say there's somebody that doesn't have cooking, you can provide them with their food buff. It's always nice to just help your team out and everything. So, cooking is great. Now, fishing, it can be a little boring if you know what I mean. But fishing definitely does have its perks, and it's all around just a good combo.
So to follow up on what he just said, so in our particular dynamic, I always level cooking, and he doesn't like the level cooking, and we play together a lot. So many times, if we're not playing together or whatever, I'll log on. My mailbox has meat. So if you have a friend who wants to level cooking and you don't, there is no reason not to tag team that one, because
Hmm.
none of the food requires cooking to eat. So all of the buff food you can share. So if you just want to pick one of your friends, like say you got a group of 5 that you play with, like your static 5-man group, if you just want to feed one of them, obviously it's got to be somebody that you trust, to stay around and cook. But if you just want to feed all of your materials to one person, that's also a good way to do it because you'll get the later stuff quicker that way. Um, all right, so let's hop into first aid. Um, First aid. Here's what I'm going to say about first aid. I don't care who you are, level it. Kill a mob. If you're not at full HP, pop a band aid, continue. Um, there's really no reason not to level it. You will get the materials as you're leveling. You will never struggle to get materials. You will never struggle to have have a stack of whatever your highest usable kind of band-aid is at all times. Something else to consider. If cloth is currently selling poorly in the auction house, turning it into band-aids almost always doubles its value. So, take rune cloth. If it's selling for crap in the auction house, turn it into band-aids and vendor it. If it's selling below a normal threshold in the auction house, buy it all out, turn it into band-aids, and vendor it. There's really no reason not to do that. Um, Everybody benefits from this one. If you play the game, which if you're watching this video, you're planning on playing the game, level first aid. Just do yourself a favor. And it's kind of fun. You get some quest chains. How about you, sir? You got any two pennies?
The only argument I have, and it's not a very strong argument, but it is an argument, is the tailors that are healers. So if you are a healer, like a priest or something, can pop a renew on yourself or pop a rejuve on yourself and then continue on to the next mob or whatever. And if you're picking up tailoring while doing that at the same time, those two are competing for materials. So tailoring uses linen, so does first aid. And so on and so forth with rune cloth and mage weave and everything else. Now, with that in mind, I was leveling a priest on hardcore. I definitely leveled tailoring and first aid. You just have to learn how to manage your materials. Other than that, absolutely. This is an absolute necessity for your melee classes for sure, because you're up front and center going to be getting hit. Now, mages, until you get to the AOE grinding part where you're actually going to be getting hit sometimes, hopefully not much, but you're going to want first aid there too. But if you're not going to be getting hit much, may not be as necessary, but I still recommend leveling it as a just in case.
So that is true. However, leveling it is super easy on mats, and you only have to keep like 20 of a band-aid at any time. So it doesn't really affect your tailoring all that much. And it's just an efficiency thing as far as those of you can heal yourself because
Yeah.
like, okay, if you heal, you reset your MP5 and you use mana, right? If you band-aid, you can regen while you're band-aiding and you didn't use the mana. So it's just a efficiency thing at that point. Also,
Yeah.
um, it's just kind of okay, cool, keep rolling kind of thing.
Yeah.
But both ways work. Like obviously, you don't have to level tail or you don't have to level first aid at all. Like it's fine. Don't do it if you don't want to. I just think everybody should. All right. So
Oh,
probably
one last thing before we hop over into the new recipes and stuff, which I'm assuming is what you were about to do.
nope. I got
Um,
one more profession to cover.
oh, okay. Well, real quick before you do that, keep in mind that secondary professions, cooking, fishing, first aid, and I guess the last one he's going to go over is lockpicking.
Yeah.
These are not bound. Like you can have all three of those and two of the primaries. This is going out to the people who may not have played, WoW in the past and are looking into it now because friends getting them into it or whatever. Um, you can have two primary professions, but that's it. But then you can have all three of the secondaries, or one of the secondaries, or however you want to mix that up. If you don't like cooking or fishing, you can get first aid. You know, it's all up to you. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was out there.
Absolutely. So yeah, the last one I'm gonna cover, rogue only. So your boy is gonna be leveling this one. So lockpicking. Um, don't sleep on this if you are a rogue. I cannot tell you the amount of money I have made standing on Orgrimmar's bank saying lockpicking can open everything. Tips appreciated. Like just stand there and open lock boxes when you're bored. Um, Not only that, you know, if your buddy like there are items that drop specifically out of lockboxes. There are blues that have a high chance of coming out of lockboxes. There are good gold farms that I may or may not cover because I'm going to use them myself that require lockpicking. Um, Pickpocketing. I would highly recommend coming up with a pickpocketing route. I may come up with some of these and share them with you. I may not because I'm going to be on the PvP realm. I actually might do it just to get some people over there so I can poke them in the butt. Who knows? Regardless, level up your lockpicking because in the grand scheme of things, it is going to just come in handy if you're a rogue, right? Because you're going to be able to pick locks in dungeons. You're going to make your BRD runs faster. You're going to be able to, you know, just open doors in general. You don't have to have the Scarlet Key because that doesn't really matter, but like, cool, you can lockpick it instead. It doesn't matter. Level up lockpicking. And I mean, it's got some cool flavor and you get some quests and it's just cool. All right, so,
Um, Technically, isn't there one more profession that's rogue only?
well, poisons, but the only thing with poisons is like, we don't, like, you don't really have to worry about that. You don't really have to level it because it's not a it's there's no like benefit or detriment because like you kind of have to level it.
Yeah.
And leveling it is literally buying things from a vendor, so like there's no real struggle or like anything
Yeah.
you need to know. um
I just wanted to make sure we covered all the professions.
oh yeah, we got this. All right, so new profession recipes within Season of Discovery. This is what is currently on Wowhead. This is what we're going to talk about real quick. Some of the things we alluded to earlier. Um, so scroll down here. Alchemy, elixir of coalesced regret, allows the imbiber to speak with the corpse of an individual with unfinished business in the mortal world. Also, make cure indigestion. So, um, Basil and I were actually talking about this before we started the podcast today. This is going to let you see those NPCs that you have to be dead to see. Um, so probably, you know, the ghost over in Skolo, the ghost down in Blackrock Depths, like just those kinds of things. It's just going to be a quality of life thing, so you don't have to die and run. Um, and then blacksmithing, shifting silver breastplate. Um, so this is good. Um, and then I'm going to follow that up with not only is it good, it's better for tanks because it has a when you get hit, there's a chance of inflicting a terrible curse from all that um makes them
Cause the
take more
attacker to
damage.
take additional damage.
Yeah, so it's going to be good for PvP and it's going to be good for tanking. Those of you PvE Andes out there, um, I wouldn't really worry about it if you're a DPS. If you're not, if you're going to be a tank or you're going to be PvPing, it might be worth looking into. Also, it has incredible stats: chance to hit, 14 strength, 6 stamina. Like, oh, it is good. Um, Obviously the next best step down is going to be the actual silver breastplate, which is just craft in BOE. You're going to be able to pick that up. And then something that's very similar that just has slightly less stats is going to be Multanus's breastplate from Wailing Caverns. So this is not a requirement. It's just really good. Um, so
Speaking of the hit, don't forget that there's that sharpened weapon hit.
Yeah,
with
we're
the
gonna.
blacksmithing now.
Yep, we're gonna. Where is that? Is that on
It's
here?
right above the shifting silver breastplate.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that. My bad. So Black Fathom Sharpening Stone. This is going to be able to be used only inside Black Fathom Deeps, but this is so we can get more hit and actually be able to hit the bosses. So while applied to the target weapon, increases hit chance by 2% for 30 minutes, has no effect outside of Black Fathom Deeps. So the hit cap for yellow things, so special abilities, is 8%. So this is just going to help us get to our 8%, right? This is just a problem they're trying to solve because they know that at level 25 there's not very much hit on gear. Enchanting, we've got Black Fathom Mana Oil, which is basically the same thing but for casters. It also gives really good MP5. So when applied to the target weapon, restores 12 MP5 and increases spell hit by 2% for 5 minutes. Again, only within Black Fathom Deeps. Um, this is just gonna be good. Like, if you're a healer or a DPS, you're gonna want this. So, also, if you're an enchanter, this is gonna be a really good moneymaker earlier. Just saying, because that does
Oh
not
yeah.
say requires enchanting. Um, Engineering shredder auto salvage unit. So what this is gonna do is just let you get engineering items like like materials,
Bolts
engineering
and stuff.
materials, yeah, materials off of shredders in Ashenvale. Um, it's gonna be good. Like it's just gonna help you in the long run. It's gonna help you stack materials. It's gonna help you make things that you need. So here are the two. We touched on this a little bit. There are two versions of the leather gloves. One for casters, as you can see here, the gauntlets. Spell hit, and it gives you haste and increases your threat by 10% for 10 seconds. Super good. It's got stam, int, and spirit. These are just amazing. And then the Void Touch Leather gloves are the DPS version. They've got agility, stamina, and spirit, chance to hit, same on use. Increases your attack speed instead of your spell damage for 10 seconds, and it also increases your threat. So obviously you're going to have to use this and pay attention to your threat meters. I think threat's not going to be as big of a problem this time around, but it's still something you're going to have to consider. And then we have tailoring. These boots are literally great for healing or DPS. They have int and spirit. The on use reduces your threat and reduces your damage taken and damage dealt by 30% for 6 seconds. They give you 7 spell power and give you chance to hit. And the reason I say spell power is because it gives you both. So it gives you healing and damage. Do you have any 2 cents on any of these, my man?
They all seem really good. I actually didn't notice before that those two things were Black Fathom Deeps only. But seeing as that's going to be a raid, it kind of makes sense. Um, Other than that, like the crafted things that you can make, the honestly those boots look super wicked for a healer. Obviously for a DPS as well, but like healers are known to steal aggro.
Oh yeah,
So I think being able to reduce your threat on top of having your fade ability, if you're a priest, is going to be great. And again, they can be worn by paladins, by
mm-hmm,
druids, by
mm-hmm.
mages who are going to be healing. So not necessarily just priests. So
Yep.
yeah, I think the new crafted materials look or crafted items look really nice. Definitely looking forward to playing around with them for sure.
Yeah. And I know we had talked about it, so we can go ahead and have our 2 pennies on what we're going to use on the characters that we're going to play. If you guys were here for the class picking guide, we have already picked our classes, so we're going to talk about not necessarily what we're going to use on our alts. If you were here for that video, I'm going to have 2 mains. I'm going to play the Rogue and the Paladin. And then Basil is going to be playing his first string is going to be a Warlock tank. So
Yep.
we're going to go ahead and talk about the professions we're going to use and why. And then kind of how some of that's going to synergize together. And then we're going to wrap it up after that. So since I have two, let's go ahead and do yours first.
I'm probably gonna go tailoring for sure, just because. making my own gear and everything else is going to be beneficial. And like we said before, some of the best gear you can have in your, pre-raid best in slots going to be crafted gear. I'm not a min-maxer, but I do like to have the edge when I'm actually doing dungeons and stuff. So being able to make my own gear just all around is really good. Now, I do plan on tanking on a clothy, which sounds so weird, but so I probably will not be picking up the extra planar spider silk boots because I don't want to, reduce my threat by 30%. But there are some really good crafted stuff there.
Well, here's the
Now,
thing. I'm
as
going to interrupt you there before you keep going. You're still going to want them because they got hit and spell power and stamina and intellect. You're just not
that's
going to
true,
use
they
the on
do.
use. Like, they're
Yeah,
still
I
going to
may
be your
just
bis.
never use the on use.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, other than that, my other profession, I'm still up in the air. So, like, I'm going to be tanking, and then occasionally DPSing if we ever get dual spec. But with the tanking and stuff, I'm going to be doing dungeons and stuff more often. So, with that in mind, enchanting is very alluring. Just because if I want to enchant stuff, I'll have the materials. Aside from enchanting, um, obviously I'm going to be picking up first aid as my secondary profession. Um, but then when it comes to that, I may go alchemy, or I may go a gathering profession just to help, make a little extra gold. Seeing as I'm not having to spend gold really, except for on threads and stuff for tailoring.
So
So
my
I'm
two
thinking
pennies.
maybe.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so my two pennies on that. Don't pick up a gathering profession because you are going to be a tank and you are going to have the distinct benefit of being able to farm humanoids for cloth and gold. So
Yeah.
what I would suggest for you, obviously take this with a grain of salt. This is just my two pennies, and we're having this conversation. Um, is since you know that one of my main characters is going to be an enchanter, and you know that you're going to have access to all that. Just like I'm not going to pick tailoring for my holy paladin because I know if I'm like, hey Basil, I'm going to give you these materials, will you craft this? Right? I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to let you do that. So, um, my two pennies on that is find something that either A benefits you in the long run or B you just want to do for fun. Um, Primarily because you're going to have access to all of my professions. Like, so if you need money, you can grind humanoids, have me disenchant the stuff, and you can sell the materials, right?
True.
Um, you can do those kinds of things. You're going to be in a position where you have really easy grinding because you're going to be a tank. You're going to have a lot of sustain. You're going to have a lot of AoE.
Yeah.
You're also putting yourself in a position where you can make your own gear. So you're not going to be expending as much resources getting your own things. So you have the freedom to make whatever your second profession is, whatever you want, because you don't need it for making money. You don't need it to improve your character. So with that being said, and that like perspective on it, what do you think you might slot in there?
With all that being said, probably alchemism.
You know what?
Um, uh, uh, because alchemy is just like we said in the beginning. It's really good.
Yeah, so that is actually even better, and I'll tell you why when we talk about mine. So you're gonna do your you're gonna do we know you're not gonna do cooking, obviously, because you're just gonna feed me materials, and you already said you don't like it. So
Oh yeah.
we know I'm gonna level cooking. It's gonna be incredible. Um, so you're gonna do most of the secondary professions, and it sounds like you're gonna do alchemy and tailoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Solid plan. I think that's going to work out great. Based on what we said earlier in the video, I think as a tank, that is a really good combination too. Not only that, because uh, you're crafting your own consumables, you're crafting your own gear. You're going to be almost 100% self sufficient, which I think is an incredible spot to be in. So I think those are good ideas.
Yeah.
So
Keep in mind also for your tanks and stuff, you don't have heals unless you're a paladin. So alchemy very well may be good. Just forgot that part earlier.
so that used to be true. However,
Oh, warriors second
now
win or victory
yes.
rush.
So warriors now get victory rush, and if you're going to be tanking on a shaman, obviously you have your own heals now. So that obviously it still matters. Having health potions is going to be huge because some of that stuff is situational, right? You have to have just killed something within 20 seconds. And if you're casting a heal, obviously it doesn't matter for druids because druids are just the most busted thing in the world and they can just hop out, renew, and go back into a freaking bear form and never even
Right.
have to worry about it. But like for those of us who have to actually cast spells, um, you have to take into consideration your potion doesn't get you hit when you're a paladin or when you're a shaman and you have to cast your heal, you cannot
Yep.
dodge, block, or parry while casting. So, is your heal gonna heal more than the amount of damage you take trying to cast your heal? Is something you have to take into consideration. So, having health
Right.
potions is huge on those characters. All right.
True.
So let's pop over to my characters. So let's start with the
Let's
rogue.
see what you got.
The rogue, and this is why I chuckled when you said you were going to pick up alchemy. I'm 100% doing herbalism and leatherworking.
I figured you'd go herbalism because of fade leaf.
Yes, so I'm going to be doing that. Not only that, thistle tea. So
Go.
there's just so many. As a rogue, you're not required to do it, but we're gonna roll in a PvP realm. I'm gonna be PvPing a lot, and just like being able to be out in the world and picking and I'm the kind of guy I will stand beside a node and wait for somebody else to try to pick it so I can get an HK before I pick my node. Uh, I am that kind of person. Um, but that being said, just not only because I'm going to be able to use them, because I know I'm going to be able to make money off of that while I'm out in the world doing things. Um, Obviously, if Rogue was better at grinding, I would get skinning on my Rogue.
Right.
But they're not as good at grinding, and I know other methods of making money with rogues, so I'm not so set on that. Leatherworking, I want the gloves. Later on in the game, obviously, we're in a situation such that we're pretty sure they're going to be adding things every phase for the professions. So I don't think under any circumstance leatherworking's not going to be good for any male wearer, any leather wearer. I also strongly believe that warriors and paladins are also going to highly benefit from leatherworking in the long run. Um, that being said, since they are changing up some of the plate things, I also do believe that there is an argument that your professions, if you are a paladin or a warrior, should be leatherworking and blacksmithing. Um, and obviously that's neither here nor there. You don't have to do that. You don't have to take that as an actual suggestion, but I think that's going to be effective.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then as far as secondary professions, I'm leveling them all on my rogue. My rogue is my
Oh
main.
well.
It's going to have all of them leveled up.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Now that being said, on my paladin, the only secondary profession I'm going to level is going to be tailoring, or not tailoring, but first aid. So as far as my primary professions on my paladin, under normal circumstances, since I am primarily going to be holy, what I would have done is enchanting and tailoring. But since you are going to be handling the tailoring part, I'm still going to go enchanting because we're going to be doing a lot of dungeons and we're going to be doing a lot of raids and we're going to have all of the materials. But my secondary profession is going to be, take a guess before I tell you.
Mm, uh, honestly, I'm thinking. So I have two options here: skinning because you love skinning. But if not skinning, I'm thinking maybe blacksmith.
It is going to be skinning, and
I figured.
I'll tell you why. The primary reason that I'm gonna play Paladin, period, is AoE grind. Um, I don't particularly like doing the AoE grinds on the mage. Um, I would much rather plant my feet and tank mobs down than I would kite them and be squishy. I don't speak squishy. Um, Plus, with the way the new talents are set up, I went over this in my Paladin video. Um, it is going to be incredibly, incredibly efficient to AoE grind, even not being protection. Um, that being said, at some point you will spec into protection, but I am likely going to be Shakadin, period.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
and the reason being is I'm going to be healing you. We're going to be raiding together. We're going to be doing 5 mans together. And I like healing on a paladin. Um, but also, your first points into the paladin tree, if you are going to be out in the world doing things, you want to rush your booty down to consecration, right? Um, and in my paladin video, we talk about the best stats and what you should get and like the best kind of weapons for that. Um, and that doesn't change until you get reckoning. And at that point, you still really don't switch over until you can do both. So like you're gonna go 11 points into holy and then several points into prot at that point, right? So there's going to be a lot of different things going on. Obviously, at some point we're going to get, or I'm hoping we get dual spec, and I can do both of those things. Um, but I'm thinking shocking in because I'll be able to PvP on the pally. I'll be able to heal on the pally, and I'll also be able to build my spec such that with the proper runes, I will be able to AoE grind. So I'll be able to feed you cloth from humanoid grinding. I will be able to skin and feed my rogue leathers. And I just think, in the grand scheme of things, being a holy paladin, especially at level 25, and I'm going to make some grinding videos about that as well if anybody's interested. Heck, you might be interested just for an alt. Um, we're going to go that route, I think. So I'm going to be enchanting and skinning. There's the chance that it could change to something else, but as long as I can give you cloth and you can help me get my healer gear sorted, I think that's probably the best route for me to go on my paladin. Do
sounds
you,
solid.
yep. Do you have any suggestions? Like I mean, I gave you some suggestions, so obviously I'm going to open that up to you as well.
Uh, the only suggestion that I would have, and it's not really necessary or anything, but like if skinning doesn't get you what you want, then you could always go blacksmithing. Um, I definitely, I definitely agree with the enchanting. With you going to be AOE grinding for sure. So many greens and the potential blues drop there. Granted, blues might be on the auction house instead, but blacksmithing does have its new crafting recipes and everything else, which seem pretty nice. And you know, if for some reason you decide not to skin, I think that would be solid too. Just means you'd have to purchase a lot of materials off the auction house.
So here's my question for you with blacksmithing. Since you know I'm going to be a healer, why would I go blacksmithing?
Aren't there some healing pieces in blacksmithing? I've never really leveled it. I just know that obviously you're gonna want to take less damage if you can.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, obviously.
and because you're going to be AOE grinding, um, and I know that these are strength, stamina, and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
but also remember when you're attacked, it has a high chance of inflicting a terrible curse,
Yeah, now that.
causing additional damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with, and that kind of stuff would be pretty nice. Um, but I also just really like the skinning idea too.
Yeah, and I mean you're not wrong. So in the grand scheme of things too, there may be a point where like um I don't need skinning anymore. Um
Right.
and then at that point, obviously, I would switch over to blacksmithing. Now, so to follow up on what you had just said, there's not really any um, healing items that you can craft.
Right.
And the big thing with AoE grinding, and this is throughout the entirety of vanilla, um, is your AoE grinding does not really benefit from strength stamina. The gear you want is stamina intellect because you want to have as big a mana pool as you possibly can so you can consecrate as much as
Drop
you can, so you can heal as
drop
much as you
all them
can.
cons.
Yeah, so you can get your seals up, so you can judge, so you can do all of these things. So obviously, the amount of mana we need is gonna be like I do believe we're gonna be able to mix and match some strength stam and
Yeah.
some int stam gear based on the effectiveness and usefulness of the Crusader strike rune. Um, because it's going to be like they increase the cooldown a little bit, but I mean, still, it's still going to be incredible. You just have to have enough mana that your consecrate, like as you're pulling a big group of mobs, like you just need to put it such that you can balance where you still have mana at the end of the pull. Because what happens if like the pull goes sideways and you have to heal, or you pull too many mobs, or you pull mobs out of order or whatever, and you need to have that couple extra consecrates and stuff. The big
Right.
thing is the Aegis rune and the Crusader Strike rune are going to basically make it where AoE grinding is going to come online way sooner than it did before, and I cannot wait.
Oh
Also,
yeah.
another argument for your blacksmithing um, is being able to make your own shield spikes, but I think
Mm.
I'm going to be comfortable just buying all of those.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
so, um, yeah, I think that's where I'm at with my professions. Do you have any other thoughts, questions, concerns before we end this one?
Honestly, um, just have fun. If you're watching this and you don't care about the min maxing and everything else, just have fun. Whatever sounds like the most fun to you. We kind of given you an overview of what all the professions are, if they're easy to level, all that good stuff. If something just speaks to you and you're just like, hey, I'm gonna be a big old warrior. I'm gonna want to just beat the daylights out of things. Maybe blacksmithing is probably good for you. It just kind of fits that fantasy. But if you are a mage or something, and you don't really care about making your own gear, you can gather or whatever sounds fun. In the end, it's a video game. We're playing to have fun. This is not a job, um, unless it is your job, at which point, awesome, I want your job. uh, but no, have fun with your games. That's what I've been trying to preach to a lot of people that take games way too seriously. Just have fun. It's meant to just kill time and kind of take you out of reality for a little bit. So if you think that a certain profession is going to be just fun because you like the way it sounds, go for it. And yeah, that's about all I got.
Hey, I'm in the same boat. I think that's kind of where we need to be. I think that's what we're gonna do, and yeah, I think we're good, man. I think we're on the same page. I think we're good to go, brother. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Looking forward to seeing everybody out there, and we'll see you guys in Azeroth just a week away.
yeah. We'll see you guys in like 5 or 6 days.